And I found that there is plenty of money. I have stood up and said, what does fully funding education mean? My door's open, come down and sit down. What aren't we funding? If I can understand what we're not funding well, that's how sometimes we can do things a little bit better.
Welcome to Quality Matters, where we speak with experts across industries to see how their perspectives can inform our pursuit of high-quality education for all students. I'm Shaka, and this is Caitlin. And we hope you'll subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a conversation.
Like you, Shaka and I are passionate about all students having access to a great education, and quality is a driving force behind our work. But what does quality really mean? In an era where parents can customize their child's education, this question is more important than ever.
During each session, we'll hear from leaders in education, technology, business, sports, and the arts. We hope to apply their insights to our pursuit of a great education in the K-12 space.
Follow us on your favorite platform and join us to secure a great education for all children. This is Quality Matters.
All right, well, good morning, Shaka. We're back with another episode of Quality Matters at the Emerging School Models Conference at Harvard University. Today we have a wonderful guest, Representative Wittke from Wisconsin, representative currently of the 63rd District, but previously of the 62nd District.
That's because we have fair maps now.
Okay. Well,
we're monitored that.
Great. We are really grateful that you're joining us this morning, and we're excited to sort of pick your brain and learn about what quality looks like in your world.
Okay.
To get us started, can you give us a little update on sort of what is exciting in your world right now? What are you working on that's sort of thrilling to you?
How long do we have?
Yeah, right. Well, that's a good answer.
So, Wisconsin a little different than some other states. We cover a 2-year term, and even though it's a part-time position, or I call it a hobby position, it does span 2 years, and it's quite a bit of investment. So we just passed the budget in June. We're starting our fall session now. So right now, I've got. So it depends what you're looking for. I've got a host of people that want me to do bills because our office does good work. I'm working on I've stepped into some healthcare bills. As well as we've just gotten a couple of other education bills, and then because of my tax background, I'm doing 2 or 3 tax bills that'll probably hit next session. So we've got kind of a broad thing going on. I don't know what's exciting because it's just when you're in the legislature, especially this will be my 4th term. You understand that growth or doing things can be very small. And so we have a split government. We've got people all the time say that, well, it's you Republicans that don't want to do anything. But I remind people that even if we get everything through the Senate and to the governor's desk, he's got to sign it. He's got over 400 vetoes in his tenure and won't be running again. It's very difficult. I'm on the building commission, so I do work with him because he chairs that committee. There are times we can work together. But right now, I think the excitement is that maybe there's time to look at some really impactful things.
Oh, yeah.
And try to get some legislation drafted that we can at least bring to the floor and debate.
Okay.
And so there are things that are broken with us. Our school funding formula is broken. We've got a number of challenges to school choice. And school choice is actually the caps are going to come off in the next fiscal year. So there's a little bit more headwind against it. As you've seen, our governor does not want to take federal money, but he was all good with $5 billion that he took in from the federal government after the acts on the health emergency. The other thing is we've got a lot of headwinds in our caucus around higher education. One of the most exciting things I've been to was last Thursday. Microsoft announced another $4 billion investment in our state. And the most exciting thing is that evidently certain municipalities are fighting against data centers. One of the things I find most interesting is that states that do well look 5 and 10 years out and then work back. We seem to want to get right where we're at and then think, well, should we go any further or not? And AI, information technology, is the new industry coming forward. We have got a golden opportunity to be at the leading edge of that. But it does take working with higher education and so on. And I think there's too many people across the country that take a look at, if I have somebody that puts something out in a tweet or whatever, oh my God, all my kids are indoctrinated. I think it's up to the individual. Some will, some won't. But we're in the legislature. We should be doing what's best for the state. So,
Representative, I wonder if you might talk a little bit about, over your tenure, both as a state rep, but as I understand, you were served on a local school board also, and so you've been civically engaged for a number of years. Wisconsin has been was really ground zero for school choice in the country with the Milwaukee program. You got the Racine program, statewide program. We've seen that grow and expand over time. What have you seen? What kind of effects of the expansion of choice have you seen? During your tenure?
So I did go to the 30-year anniversary for school choice, which was an excellent celebration.
Yeah.
So what's missing out of that is that Wisconsin is a heavy teachers union state, especially in the urban districts. So yes, I was on the Board of Education for the 5th largest urban school district in the state, and I served as its board president for 2 years, even though 8 other members of the board probably wouldn't have voted for me in a general election, nor did they see things the same way I did. One of the things I always joke and I always tell people is that when they're elected to the school board, run for president. And someone will say, well, why would you do that? I said, you don't understand how much influence you have as the board president. I met weekly with one superintendent and then 2 when unfortunately they forced Dr. Hawes out, who I had a great respect for. But what you see there are the things that are preventing kids from getting opportunities that they need in this world, especially in the urban areas where I have a lot of colleagues that say, well, why can't we get parents involved? They say, why don't you come down to my district? I'll take you around. I'll show you some of the the families that we have to work with to try to get kids up above that. The things that I've seen with choice. So what we've done is we were ground zero, but if you've tracked the progress, we've been very slow to make any additional progress, and now it's almost like a headwind that is unbelievable because of the split government we have. So the innovative things that we could do have slowed down, although we have gotten some good things done. What I learned when I was, I learned a lot more acronyms when I was board president and working locally.
Right.
And I found that there is plenty of money. It's just how do you spend it? And then if you go and look at a barometer of school districts, you'll find the good ones focus on kids and do everything focused on the student. The ones that don't focus on the adults. My starting pay isn't good enough. My time in the classroom isn't good enough. Whereas if you go somewhere else, they could care less if they have 50 kids in the classroom. I just want to make sure that each one of them can reach their full potential.
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
So I've seen that, and then of course I'm a big school choice proponent. And the fallacy around school choice is that all of a sudden there's going to be this huge movement to school choice. Well, sit down with them. They'll tell you, I can't take every single public school student.
Right, there's not the capacity.
There's not the capacity.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the money. So everything comes down to a funding deal. But the funniest part of this is that our biggest school choice program is what we call open enrollment, which means public school to public school.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? So like in the district I was in, they said, well, it's the choice program, parental choice program, that's killing the district. And I said, yeah, but you get reimbursed for that with our formula, or the property taxpayers have to pick up the tab. The other part that I said to them was, why aren't you upset about you have an equal number of kids going to 5 public schools, other public school districts around yours? How come that's not an issue? Silence. We don't want to talk about that. And so they don't want to talk about it in the state. They don't want to talk about it locally. But if you ended that, we've done something in this year that we got in the budget, which was you used to be able to keep roughly around 3,800 in your school district by sending kids out. We've cut that back now. So we're hoping that does something. Go ahead.
So this is so interesting, and you said something that I just want to inquire about because I liked what you said. If I understood you correctly, you said they have enough funding.
Yes.
That wasn't the issue.
It's not.
And you're right. We hear a ton of feedback, pushback, saying if we had more money, kids would be doing better, schools would look totally different, which is not proven. To your point, there is enough money, and the more money we create, actually schools and their outcomes don't change. So, but what I'm curious about, and given your background in accounting, you're familiar with finances. What role does money and funding play in quality programs and quality outcomes? Like when you sort of puzzle it all together, of course it does play a role. And so how do you see that sort of coming all together?
So one of the things that I see is that local districts, we have the big local control, can't disturb that. So if you make really bad financial decisions and I'm just handing you money, I have no recourse for it.
At the local level?
At the local level.
Okay.
So my point is it depends what you're investing in. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Racine Unified School District convinced a majority of taxpayers to pass $1 billion referendum. Because it went to court, they sat on it for years.
Okay.
They could have borrowed the money at 2%. They borrowed it at close to 4%. Okay, so at that amount of money, you can see how it carves off what you're able to spend it on because you're paying more interest. And their point was, well, when we got the referendum analysis, they built in a 4% rate. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. You should have had a plan in place to move forward right away. It was in court.
Right.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you have put a plan in place and even taken the money and then paid it back if you lost the court case, which you probably weren't going to do?
Is this feels like the the Milton Friedman quote about you're never as careful with someone else's money as you are with your own.
So I want to make one point that I always ask, and I've asked this since I was on the board, since I've been in the legislature. I've stood up on the floor. I've done it in committee hearings. Because we always hear, you need to fully fund public education. So I have stood up and said, what does fully funding education mean? My door's open, come down and sit down. What aren't we funding? Because that's how sometimes we can do things a little bit better, is that if I can understand what we're not funding well.
Sure.
And then I haven't had one Democrat come and talk to me.
I was just about to say, and what do they come and tell you?
The best part was we agreed to meet with some union teachers in our district, which we got 4, but that's better than none. And I asked the question, I said, what does that mean? And most of the teachers said, well, you have to fund it so these kids can realize their opportunity. I said, okay, so what is that? Well, you know better than I do. And I said, no. I said, you have to understand what I'm looking at the state level. I said, we have to fund higher ed, K through 12. We have a prison system to fund. We have a number of other
infrastructure and all sorts of things.
And then now the big one is what we call medical assistance has risen significantly. That's our portion of things like Medicaid, Medicare, whatever. So I said, where do you want me to take it from? Transportation, you know? And the teacher looked at me and said, I said, so I'm not going to put it anywhere. I'm just going to go with the standard. And that's it. And it was like, well, I said, you can't name one thing that we don't fund that we should fund better. Now I did sit down with so I've gotten in the state, I've gotten a couple superintendents that'll sit down with me and actually talk.
Great.
And one of them that I went out to see, and I still have the stuff he gave me. This is when we did the bill on the Department of Public Instruction, moving the what I call the benchmarks.
Yes.
And performance.
Yep.
He explained to me what the real meaning was, and had I talked to him before the bill, we may have made some adjustments.
Okay.
Because the NAEP standards are higher than reading at grade level, for example. So you can aspire to the NAEP standards, but you have to understand what reading at grade level really means. And he walked me through the whole thing, and then he went to and said, okay, so you guys are up there, take a look at our district, and you say, we're going to cut your funding by $2 million. He said, okay. He said, that's fine. And then he took me through and divided it all the way down to the classroom. And then at something like between 1,000, 2,000 in the classroom, he said, okay, so what do I cut? He said, I can't cut a full class. I can't cut a teacher at that level. But you guys expect me to figure this out. And he said, that's the problem. He said, if I could, his point was, if I could get a funding formula that gave me 4 or 5 years at the same student level, and I don't disagree with him. But, you know, it is always money, because the charter and choice schools don't have money for infrastructure. They get very little federal funding. We made a huge gain last session where we actually upped the significantly in a deal with the governor on the budget. He took a bunch of flack, so he did a 400-year veto, which is now going to cost property taxpayers dearly, and has the whole side of the aisle, because we asked if he would. So if I go into the weeds, when we sit down with the budget, when we start to look at how we're funding things, when we get to education, there are certain different breakdowns as to how things are funded, and a lot of it has to do with there are things like there's something that it's basically like having water at a level, some sufficient they call it. So some funding is some sufficient, some is direct. So we will normally negotiate with him to try to get the impact on property taxes down to a reasonable level. We asked if he would do it on his veto list. He said no way, so we left it. So everybody is upset because it's going to, like a $600, $900 per student increase in every district is going to go directly to the property tax bill.
Yeah.
Representative, I wonder if, as we're, as always happens with our conversations, we get into things and then the time goes by much faster than we think.
Yeah.
And today's no different. I wonder if I might ask you one more question.
Sure.
And it's something that a lot of folks at this particular conference, with the Emerging School Models Conference, a lot of folks are thinking about. And that is whether or not to measure academic outcomes, especially in choice schools. Obviously, we measure academic outcomes in the public school system. Reasonable minds can differ about whether or not we do anything with that data, right? I mean, we see failing schools for years that stay open. How do you think about, whether or not to measure academic outcomes in choice schools?
Well, I'm kind of confused because I believe we do. They have to take the same tests.
Oh, in Wisconsin, they take the same tests.
So here's a point that's a little bit different that is never brought up. Choice schools have to be accredited in the state of Wisconsin or they're closed. I don't have the same thing at the public school. They're not accredited. So one of the things that I'm taking a look at is how do we kind of merge in the administrative part from the state to try to get one thing for everybody that we're, and I had the audit committee, and we've got an audit going on the audit function in the Department of Public Instruction, so that should be some. But do I believe we should measure academic outcomes? Most definitely. But there are other things we should measure as well.
Okay.
Especially now that we're getting more towards data technology, sciences, and so on. We should be measuring apprenticeships. We should be measuring dual credit courses that bring down the piece. There are a whole host of things that we should measure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to make a plug for this because I go to a lot of choice schools. The choice schools I go to, there is one thing they do that, if you go decades back when I was in high school, is they instill values in their students.
Oh, okay.
And I'm talking about respect, integrity, and so on.
Yeah.
And if we focused a little bit more on that in all school systems, my guess is that we would have people coming out in society that are better equipped to be part of it.
Coexist
With
work
people.
together.
But that's a huge
Yeah.
thing. If you go to a choice school, on the wall there'll be, how do you treat others like you treat yourself? And we have some really good innovative schools in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But it's really tough to keep them going. I'm working on a bill now with one city charter school. They're trying to do a demonstration.
Kaleem Care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaleem and Carl and I were smoking a cigar the other night. Carl, Kaleem and I get along really well. I go over there a lot. I have a lot of fun with those kids. But they're doing a demonstration school, and they do something that I wish every public school would think about. So every child that is not ready to be at grade level,
Okay.
they have a separate room. They bring them in for more intensive one-on-one work. But their goal is that when it's done, when I feel I can get them back in the mainstream, they move them up. Because when I was there the one time, these ambassadors there, Kaleem was telling me, that's two that took you around, they were in this room only a year or so ago. So their point is, those kids just think they're in a different classroom.
Yeah, it's not a track.
It's not like you're in this room.
Right.
It's like you're one of the scholars, you're just in this room.
Yeah.
And that's how they're treated.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And he had told me he had somebody from the Madison School Board there and said, "Why can't you do this?" Oh, we couldn't do that. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Do you know? Being part of the Racine Unified School District, do you know how many kids that have great talent just get lost in the shuffle because people just look and see who they are and they go, "Oh, you must be from there."
Too many.
So you can't learn.
Right.
So I'm going to put you on special ed.
Right.
So we're trying to find ways to circumvent that.
Yeah.
Well, I could go on for days.
Love that.
Well, we could also. So we'll either have to have you back on or we'll continue the
Anytime.
conversation at another time. But thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining us at the Emerging School
Thanks for
Models.
the invite. Good warm up for my next event.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to listen to
thanks
your
so much.
panel.
Yep.
All right, Caitlin, so we just got to speak with Representative Robert Wittke from Wisconsin. And, I'm glad that we had him because Wisconsin was kind of the origin of school choice, the modern school choice movement in the U.S. So Milwaukee, obviously, for his voucher program. He's from Racine, which has another choice program. There's a statewide one. But, he gave us kind of some perspective, both as a representative, also as a former school board member, about where he still sees like some gaps, where he sees some bright spots in this space. One thing that stood out to me, and then would love to hear what stood out to you, but was open enrollment. Open enrollment really being something that that he said is frankly like the largest program.
Yeah.
I'd have to check the numbers on that, the precise data, but there are a lot of students who participate in open enrollment as one form of choice. Often we sort of forget about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's such a good reminder that public school and the unique profiles of different public schools sometimes are the perfect choice for a student or a child.
That's right.
And everything that they represent and the communities that they're either in or that they're building, sometimes that's exactly what families and students are needing, are wanting, and are enjoying.
Yeah.
And too often, I agree, they're written out of this narrative of being a choice.
Well, I think, from my perspective anyway, it's because often they're not a choice, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
I mean, where I've heard a superintendent, I can think of one who's in Tennessee, and he used to talk about wanting the schools in his district to be the school of choice. He was like, he said, I don't want...
What a great perspective.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want families to come to our school because they have no other choice.
Yeah.
He said, I want them to think, okay, that's I want to go to that big comprehensive high school because that's our number one choice, not because we're resigned to go to it. And I thought that's a healthy way to think about it.
Imagine if every public school, but also if that was the perspective that everybody was holding, like it's less of this don't leave, you have to be here, and more of like, I'm going to create a community, an environment, a program that entices people to want to join. And that totally flips the narrative of some of these public schools kind of on their head, and I love that. I think that's great. I thought it was interesting when Representative Wittke was talking about, yes, they were sort of the beginning of the school choice movement, but how he's been, I almost got the sense that it was a feeling of disappointment with how little evolution and innovation has continued in that area on this track. And I think that is a bummer, but he kind of explained why that might have been the case. Like, there are some real people and roadblocks standing in the way, and this is leading me to what I wanted to say about the roadblocks. When he would open his office and he would ask for people to come and tell me what it is you need specific funding for that
full
you are
funding.
not getting.
Full funding
that you're not getting. Tell me what the impediments are for, achieving this goal. Tell me.
And it's crickets.
Either people weren't coming to have and engage in those conversations, or they were coming to share, well, we just need more funding. Okay, well, tell me what it is that currently you don't have the funding for that you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Well, we need more to accomplish all the things. What are those things?
I know that it's just such a nonsense answer. I heard somebody ask a similar question once to a school board member where I live, and I said, well, how much do you think you need? And she said 3x. Okay, it's $1 billion budget.
Yeah.
We were like, so you need $3 billion?
Yeah.
And 3x is when you're giving multiples of what your current budget is, that's basically you saying we don't know how to spend money, because that's such an imprecise answer.
Yes.
Like $3 billion, and a lot of people, don't know what's spent in public schools. Right. So some folks in the room were kind of nodding along at first, and they were like, "Oh, man, that sounds reasonable." And I said, "Do you know how much is being spent?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe 100 million." No, 10 times that. So she's effectively asking for 30 times what you think is currently being spent. Just
absolutely insane. I can't help but think about, if you were in any other situation where you were receiving funding, if you were a child and you needed some money to go do something and you ask your parents, if you are at a business, running a business or philanthropic fund, and you're asking your philanthropist, like, well, I need more. I need 3 times as much. Okay, well, what?
It's a little bit like saying,
when is that working?
Hey, Mom, Dad, can you increase my allowance? And you say, well, how much do you think you need? And they say, well, how much do you have?
Yeah.
Okay, that can't be the answer. We're not going to do it this way. The other thing I want to touch on quickly that he said, we were asking him, I think you asked a question about like kind of what to measure, and is it academic results? And he seemed to say that in Wisconsin there is a lot of academic result reporting, which I think is great. It allows, it provides some transparency for parents so that they know. Again, we've talked a lot about test accountability. Tests aren't everything, but I do think it's a really helpful indicator of how things are going. But he mentioned a few other things, and would love to know your thoughts on it. He said, we should be like, at least counting the number of apprenticeships that are happening, dual credits that are acquired, how are we teaching civic values? And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I loved all that too. It's very on brand or it's very aligned with many of the other conversations that we've been having. And this, I don't don't know, maybe you can speak to this. I don't know that it's a new desire for parents to have schools and schools sort of expose their kids to new opportunities, new experiences, new engagements, and sort of engage in some of this discourse around and in addition to academics. Like, I don't know if that's, when I was in school growing up, I felt like we had, lived virtuously and compassionately. These were things focused on humility. Like, there were a lot of outside of academic conversations that we were having. So I don't know that this notion of exposing kids to real world opportunities through different courses and nurturing civic responsibilities and a civic engagement and dialogue are new things, but I definitely feel like it's being discussed more, and therefore this pressure and this urgency to start measuring it, because people want to be able to stand on it. And in order to do that, they have to measure what it is they're doing to achieve it. So it's like this
Good word.
This new push to actually quantify it, but I don't know that it's actually a new initiative to have it. Is it?
That's a really good word. I don't know either. I mean, I think it's a really good question. Probably the impetus is just that right now we are in such a time of fraught debate, like where it's hard to have these conversations, and so I definitely think people see the need for it.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if it means that it is happening or isn't happening, or if it stopped. That's a great question. Maybe it's something that folks can drop in the comments. Like,
I was just about to say.
Have you seen in the areas where you live, in your schools, in the schools that you attended or that your kids attend, have you seen a drop in kind of the transmission of like civic values? And if so, like, when did that happen? Why did it happen? I'd love to learn more about that, but I definitely agree that we could use more of it just in the public discourse, in the public space. How do we teach kids to interact in a healthy way with one another and have, whether it's healthy debate or just being a good friend?
Yeah, I love that. I would be so curious as well. And maybe that's a perfect place to sort of wrap us up. Where are people, audience members, where are they seeing that? And what are their takes on the urgency, the necessity, the metric forms that sort of surround this discussion as well? When did it start? How are you quantifying schools, engagements, communities that are doing it well?
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
Let's find out in the comments. Another good conversation. Thanks,
All right.
Caitlin.
See you next time.
Yeah.